Monsieur François, bienvenue à Sorocaba et à le Mosteiro de São Bento. Nous sommes très heureux de votre visite. Je vais faire une brève présentation de l'histoire de Sorocaba et ses monastères. Pardonnez-moi de faire cette présentation en anglais. The first European to arrive in this site was Baltazar Fernandes. He was an explorer from Bandeirante, that we call in Portuguese, from Santana do Parnaíba. He came to the site in 1654. And the first thing he did was to build a small chapel in honor of Our Lady of the Bridge, Nossa Senhora da Ponte. At that time, it was very common to put these names to honor the Virgin Mary. For instance, in Guararema, very close to São Paulo, there was a Virgin dedicated to Our Lady of the Ladder. The meaning is that Our Lady, the Virgin Mary, is the ladder that can lead us to God. That's the same meaning of Our Lady of the Bridge. The Virgin Mary would be the bridge that can lead us to God. Then he built this small chapel. He went back to Santana do Parnaíba and asked the Benedictine monks that were already there to build a monastery here, a small monastery here. And he gave all the support for them to build this monastery. So they came here in 1660 and they start building the monastery, the St. Benedict monastery here. It was read in 1667 actually, and since 1660 we have in this city, in this town, in this site, the presence of the Benedictine monks. Sorocaba is one of the first cities of our size in all the Americas that was born and developed around a Benedictine monastery, like Copenhagen, for instance. Because Sorocaba was chartered as a villa in 1661, so 1 year after the arrival of the monks in Sorocaba. This is one of the most interesting things about this monastery here. Another thing that is interesting is that this is one of the very few monasteries in all over the world that has 355 years of uninterrupted presence of a monk or an active monastery. And this is another thing that is quite interesting. And here in this monastery, when Marquês de Pombal expelled all the Jesuits from Portugal and its colonies, it's reckoned that the Jesuits were hidden here for a while in this monastery here. That was 18th century. And so Sorocaba is a very interesting story actually, because of the monastery and other things. For instance, Sorocaba was the land of the explorers that went to the countryside of Brazil, and they founded very interesting cities, very important cities like Cuiabá. Pascoal Moreira Cabral and Miguel Sutil, they went from Sorocaba. They founded Cuiabá at that time, very close to a river called River Cuiabá, which is now the capital of the state of Mato Grosso in the central west of Brazil. Another thing that is interesting in our history is that we had the tropeiros. Tropeiros were drovers that used to go to this southern part of Brazil, Rio Grande do Sul, for instance, and they used to bring from them donkeys and mules and to be sold in Sorocaba. In Sorocaba, for 250 years, we had a huge fair with 50,000 mules and donkeys, because at that time, you know, the means of transportation was the mules, of course. And so all the golden age of Brazil was possible because of the mules that were sold in Sorocaba, were bought in Sorocaba during our fair. From May to September, we had that huge fair in Sorocaba, and Sorocaba doubled or quintuplied its population at that time during the period of the fair. And so these drovers, as they went to the south and came back to Sorocaba bringing those troops, they were founding very interesting cities, very important cities like Curitiba, Ponta Grossa, Passo Fundo, and several cities, Vacaria, very important cities in the southern part of Brazil, were founded by Sorocabanos, by the Sorocabanos tropeiros. Another thing that is interesting is that in Ipanema was the first iron mill of all the Americas. For you to have an idea, we have a monument there by the American Association, Siderurgical Association, Iron and Steel Association, stating that Ipanema was the first iron mill of all the Americas. All the knives from and all the instruments, the weapons from the Paraguay War, for instance, were built in Ipanema. And so another thing is that there in Ipanema, or here in Sorocaba, because Ipanema belonged to Sorocaba at that time, was born the father of the Brazilian history, the Viscount of Porto Seguro. And he was the first fellow to write the history of Brazil based on documents. So he's the father of the Brazilian history. He is now buried here in Sorocaba. Another thing is that one of the first railways of Brazil, Estrada de Ferro Sorocabana, in 1870, was also have its beginning here in Sorocaba. The name is Sorocabana Railway. And so another thing very interesting is that Sorocaba was called once the Paulista Manchester, because here was the cradle, here started actually the textile industry in Brazil. That's why it's called the Paulista Manchester. So it's a very important city in terms of Brazilian history. We are from 1654, and for you to have an idea, São Paulo, that was founded by the Jesuit fathers in 1554, just 100 years before. And so Sorocaba is this town that you are visiting now, and this monastery is one of the most important heritage or monuments of our history of Brazil. That was certified by the Mint of Brazil when in 2010, it's the 350th anniversary of this monastery, the Mint of Brazil issued a medal, an official medal of Brazil, to celebrate the 350th anniversary. And also the Brazilian Post Office issued a national stamp, official national stamp, picturing this monastery here to celebrate his 350th 50th anniversary. So you are here in one of the most important heritages of Brazil. So we are very, very grateful for your presence and your support, the support of your company. Flex is supporting us, is helping us in this renovation of this heritage here. And this is, we are very proud and to have you and your company together with us too in this very important task. So we thank you very much for your coming, for your support, and be sure that you are we are helping one of the most important monuments and heritage of this country of Brazil. Thank you very much for your visit and for your support. Thank you indeed.